Hey, Michael, how are you, buddy? Glad that you're able to get together for another one of our great conversations. This time, a second form of toxicity in the workplace. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Frank?
Very good. So, we talked about the toxic handler. Let's talk about the other side of it, the people creating the toxicity. One in particular is this sociopathic personality type that you find in the workplace. I wrote an article about this a number of years ago called The Corporate Sociopath, given some talks on it. I've encountered many of these people. These people really do leave an incredible wake and trail behind them. And I'm sure you've encountered some of them along the way yourself.
Absolutely. My response to that is, oh dear, because it's very easy to laugh about it after the fact, but I'm sure the people who are listening to this are also are going, oh yeah, been there, have experienced that, and I think we all have a few stories to share. What's your most one that comes to your mind?
But I've actually encountered them in many, many situations. Having done turnarounds, I usually followed them because I was a turnaround CIO and I would take over a large division.
Hmm.
And the first thing you notice when you come into an environment where that sociopath has been fired is the scale of the damage. When people have to face somebody who's that untrustworthy, or that lacking in compassion, and there's a spectrum of sociopathic types, obviously. Some just lack compassion, some have absolutely no conscience whatsoever. And of course, these people end up going on to do horrific things, sometimes ending up in the newspapers or jail. But that's not what you're dealing with in corporate. You're dealing with this lower level sociopathic personality type that has no compassion whatsoever for others, totally in it for themselves, and they have no problem kissing up and kicking down. They're very damaging people. They ostracize people, they bully people, they humiliate people to get their way, they dress people down in public. They they threaten people. I remember taking over one CIO role, and people told me about this conference room called the torture chamber. Yeah, seriously, where this particular individual would take people he was really ticked off at, and you got invited to a meeting in that conference room. I'm sure for 24 hours before that, your heart was racing and you knew you were going to be totally, totally chewed out.
Mm.
But I found this to be, honestly, not a lot different than an individual coming into a corporation, walking into the data center, turning the power switch off, where
Mm.
all the machines immediately power down because that's what happens. The human infrastructure goes offline, it stops working. Humans, not unlike machines in a data center, have sensors. In our case, it's a threat sensor called the limbic system. And
Mhm.
when there's a threat, they basically go into protective mode. And you can see it when you walk around. People who are very, very guarded, they just parse every word that comes out of their mouth. They're watching your every action. It takes a while to win their trust back. How about you? Tell me some things that you've seen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was in an organization where there was a very active, corporate sociopath, and it was
Tell
interesting at
me
the same.
more. Tell me more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was interesting at the same time. It was very sad, because you see the effects on people, and you know normally we've talked about this. Normally you go into work and you're kind of focused on what you must do for the day and what your goals are. But then there's this environment that's overshadowing everything, and it's one of fear and trepidation. And then you begin to hear the stories about so and so's been berated, and there was crying, and running out of the conference room. And it's just so apparent that now everyone's attention is just turned to that issue. And everyone deals with it in their own way. But the problem is everyone is in this state of trying to protect themselves. So I've seen colleagues um, you know trying to be funny, trying to be facetious, trying to escape meetings, trying to you know
Trying to
substitute,
avoid meetings because they
avoid
don't want to
meeting.
go to a meeting with
Absolutely.
that individual.
Yes,
No question.
yes. They will even send, their other colleagues, to stand in for them because they want to avoid the confrontation. And it's bad. It's really, really bad.
Well, it's interesting if you look at the neuroscience behind this. Just like Pavlov's dogs with this food and eating conditioning, Joseph Ledoux, who studied this, found out that there's something called fear conditioning, which is exactly the same thing. That person's image gets imprinted on the brain, in the brain of the other individual that they've threatened. So you could think that, if you'd been chased by a lion at any point in time, when we were primitive, your brain would maintain an image of that because it was a great threat to your survival. And he proved that. So if you are threatened by someone in the workplace, all you need is the mere presence of that individual to set off the limbic system in a cascade of events. It could be passing them in the hallway. It could be them coming to a
Yes.
meeting where you have to be there with them. The fact of the matter is, the minute that person shows up, the meeting becomes completely unproductive. Everybody is focused on the threat and not on the work. And it's same thing. It's like having a room full of equipment where none of it is working suddenly. These people are so damaging. And they're masters at manipulation. They know how to smile to win favor. They can be very, very charming. If you read about some of the great, serial killers are very charming people. They would, be able to actually ingratiate themselves with a victim, and then this monster would show up. So we're not talking about murderers at work, but we are talking about people who are manipulative.
Yeah.
They can have hidden agendas and carry them out very well. It could be as simple as that, and it could be as bad as somebody who's a complete backstabber,
Mhm.
smiles to your face, but stabs you in the back when you're not there. And I've seen all of it in companies, all of it, without a doubt. I do think the positive side of this is that I think it was worse years ago. The world is waking up to engagement, the need to take care of people. I think the days of these corporate sociopaths are literally numbered, and
Mhm.
I hope that comes to pass. But as you and I set out a number of years ago to build a world where everybody wins, in companies like that, there will be no place for these people. They just
Yeah.
won't fit in. And as more and more good cultures arise, these people are the antithesis of cultural fit. So, I think that's the positive side of this. They're
Mhm.
less prevalent, and one day people will pick up an article like the one I wrote and say, "Gee, I can't believe that ever existed."
Yeah, well, very well said. I really agree with that. And, I think when I was doing some thinking about it, I came to the conclusion that one of the things that would protect, teams and organizations against, people of these types entering the organization is to first build a very highly collaborative, you know, uh, well-meshed group of people, where you have people who are, collaborating, and also have a high sense of trust with each other. I think that's a prerequisite, to build defense against, situations where, corporate sociopaths may enter the organization. What do you think about that?
What's funny, I even wrote some stuff on something I call the corporate immune system, the emotional immune system that rises up against these people, and in a place that is harmonious, where people are truly collaborating, where none of this is tolerated. Those people just they're picked out so quickly. They're very, very toxic. And the corporate immune system forces them out of there. They don't feel comfortable. Their games don't work. They can't succeed the way they succeeded in the past. As you have fewer and fewer levels in companies, it's harder for these people to hide in those middle levels of an organization, acting like they're really on top of things, tough but effective. And it
Mhm.
takes years to find these people out in big companies, but I think in companies that are flatter, they're going to have a lot of trouble
Yeah,
existing and getting away with it because they don't deliver. That's
yeah.
one of the problems. They talk a good game. They're really, really good at manipulating people, but they're really not good at getting work done through others. So they can't survive in a really, really well-run place. I don't believe it.
Well, I think one thing that we have going for us these days is that um, corporations these days are fatter organizations than they used to be. And so, there's more, of a peer network going on. There's more opportunity for, discussion and feedback. And with the millennials coming in, they, are highly, wired that way, to be able to, respond quickly and understand, information at a very high level, that sort of thing. And I think the opportunities are less and less there, right, for corporate sociopaths.
Well, for sure. We're heading towards a world of feedback-driven cultures. The annual performance review is going away. We're getting into feedback-driven cultures. They're going to involve even more 360s and feedback from others. So it becomes harder and harder to find a place to hide for these people. And that's the good news.
Mm.
They certainly should never be in a leadership position, ever. I think it's very hard for them to exist as individual contributors unless they're in a highly uncollaborative place. But I don't believe they'd be happy there. They want to manipulate and do that to get ahead. They're not into working hard generally. That's not their game. So I think the future in that respect is much brighter, and I like the way culture and the world are heading. I like the changes taking place because the millennials are coming in. They saw their parents worked over by corporations, and they totally get the fact that it's not about loyalty. It's finding a good place to work. Glassdoor is exposing these places, making it harder for reigns of terror to exist for long. So this is all really positive, and hey, I'm upbeat about it. I think it's good. And I replaced these people so many times. I saw the damage they did, the lives they ruined, the amount of people whose careers suffered as a result, and they really never got anything great done. They were talk record, but track record was nothing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think it's positive.
Yeah, usually the gains are short term, and they're out to prove particular things, and that they're getting traction, with particular things in the organization, but it's usually short lived. And over the long term, you actually come out with a negative net gain, because now you've affected so many people in the organization and disabled them essentially, as you said, from truly good work. And it's very difficult to undo, very difficult to undo.
Yeah, it really, really is. We should maybe in our next conversation we should talk about the workplace of tomorrow and what that's going to look like, because these people aren't going to, they're not going to be there. And you can see HR is undergoing a huge transformation at this moment in time. It has been undergoing one for many, many years. And I think it'd be good to talk about that, because these new cultures that are coming along are going to be driven by chief people officers and organizations where maybe even the CEO, as I've heard in some places, is starting to say they're the chief people officer. And this is positive. And that means HR as we know it will continue to fade away. And this rise of the new people focused or talent management HR is where things are going for sure.
Yeah. Well, if anyone's listening to our video here in our good chat, I just want to highlight that you have some interesting articles out there floating around the internet on corporate sociopathic behavior, and I read that. That's very interesting. So thank you.
That's right. We should. We didn't post that one yet on our blog, or did we?
Not quite. I don't think so.
Okay. So look, I'll get that out on the blog. It's a good article. I think everybody should take a look at it. It's a quick read, but it sums up what the problems and opportunities are in terms of dealing with these individuals. So, hey, another fun chat, Michael. I'm liking it.
It's really good.
So glad
Yeah.
we're able to put these on the air. Till next time, buddy. All the best. Don't forget to go to our site to get some information. A lot of good stuff out there, including the ebook. You can download it and stay in touch. We look forward to really sharing a lot of interesting things with you.
Absolutely.
Have a good one.